It's 1996. A 2-year-old boy named Justin picks up a toy drum and plays it like he's been doing it for years. Not with noise, with rhythm, with soul. His mother stands there frozen, watching this tiny boy summon something far beyond his age. It doesn't feel like play, it feels like destiny.
Is there anything?
Time moves forward, so does the boy. Drumming on tables, stepping on chairs, singing anywhere he could find a beat. Strangers stop in their tracks. What they heard did not sound like a child. It sounded like timeless. One day, his mother uploads one of his videos to a brand new site called YouTube, meant only for distant relatives, but the world saw it too. And once the world saw him, there was no going back. Millions watched. Some saw a gifted child, others saw a product, a diamond, a boy they could own. Pattie ignored the noise, but among them one man, Scooter Braun, found a way to reach him. He somehow convinced Pattie to bring Justin from Stratford to Atlanta, not with force, but with a vision she could not ignore. He promised the world, fame, success, a future. And so, with hope in her heart, she signed the paper, sending her teenage son into a world she believed would protect him. But the moment the ink dried, the countdown to his childhood's end began. And yes, Justin did become a global phenomenon just as promised. Streets shut down when he appeared. Airports erupted the moment he landed. Convoys of cars were swallowed by screaming fans. He wasn't just famous, he was worshipped, lived for. Heroes at a speed most only see in dreams, from barely affording 2 meals a day to hundreds of millions of dollars. But just after a few years, something happened. Something that changed him completely. It became hard to recognize if it was even the same Justin Bieber at all.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry.
What really happened to this sweet ball-cut boy the world fell in love with? Let's uncover the truth. But once you know it, you will never see him or this industry the same way again. And if your heart isn't strong enough to carry the weight of what you're about to hear, you may want to turn away now. Justin Bieber's story does not begin with music. It does not begin with fame. It begins with pain. A kind of pain that existed long before he ever took his first breath. It begins with a teenage girl named Pattie Mallette, growing up in the quiet town of Stratford, Ontario, a home without shelter. Stratford looked like something from a postcard. Brick theaters, hockey rinks, snowy winters, church bells on Sunday mornings, a place where neighbors knew each other's names and whispered about everyone else's business. But inside her home, Pattie wasn't safe. She lived with her mother and stepfather. They were there, but not really. They didn't nurture her. They didn't protect her. And that left invisible scars. From a young age, Pattie endured abuse, physical, emotional, even the very people meant to guard her childhood became the ones who stole it. By her teens, that pain had hardened into anger, depression, and a crushing sense of isolation. Her house felt less like a home and more like a cage, or worse, a quiet kind of hell. So, at just 16, she ran away. But the world outside was no kinder. Pattie bounced between shelters, curled up on friends' couches, stole food to survive. She numbed her pain with alcohol, drugs, shoplifting. Not rebellion, but survival. And yet, even in her darkest years, one light flickered: creativity. She performed in local plays, writing poems and stories, trying to build worlds where she could rewrite the ending. Because in her own life, there was no escape. It was in this chaos that she met Justin Bieber. He was charming, funny, and just as lost as she was. A boy with his own run-ins with police, fights, vandalism, but for a moment, he made her forget the pain. Yet, when the laughter faded, the loneliness returned. Jeremy couldn't heal her wounds, and deep down, Pattie knew he was just as broken. Their connection was a bandage, not a cure. By 1992, the weight of it all became unbearable. The abuse she had endured as a child, the nights spent on strangers' couches, the empty promises of love. It all pressed down at once. She was only 16, but felt decades old, hopeless, unworthy, tired of running. One night, overwhelmed by the belief that she had nothing left to live for, Pattie walked into the street and stepped in front of a moving truck. The truck struck her, sending her small frame crashing onto the pavement. She was covered in blood, trembling, her breath shallow. People on the street rushed to her side, some screaming, some frozen in shock, until someone finally called for help. An ambulance carried her to the hospital, sirens slicing through the night. Doctors worked frantically, fearing she wouldn't make it. Her body was battered, her spirit shattered. But against all odds, she survived. In the stillness of that hospital bed, broken, staged, and barely breathing, something began to shift inside her. She felt the weight of her choices, the fragility of life, and the faintest whisper that maybe she wasn't meant to die. That whisper soon had a voice. A Christian counselor sat by her side and said words she never thought were meant for her.
God still has a plan for you.
And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. That day, Pattie chose life. After her recovery, she drifted back to Jeremy. Their relationship wasn't stable, but it was familiar. And then, at 17, she discovered she was pregnant. Jeremy was 18, but fatherhood was too heavy. A weight for a boy still fighting his own demons. He drifted away, not out of cruelty, but confusion. For Pattie, the absence stung. She had already grown up in a home without protection, and now, carrying a child, she faced that silence again. Jeremy wasn't there for the doctor's visit. He wasn't there during the sleepless night when she rested a hand on her belly and whispered promises to the life inside her. He wasn't there when the town whispered to a Catholic girl, unmarried, pregnant at 17. In Stratford, gossip was louder than compassion. Neighbors called her reckless, a mistake. Some urged her to end the pregnancy, but Pattie, she stood firm.
This child has a purpose. God gave me this boy for a reason.
She wasn't just raising a child, she was raising a promise. In her faith, she believed he was chosen, that God had spared her life so her son could live for a purpose. And so, with no money, no partner, and no plan, she decided to raise him alone. She moved into a small, low-income apartment run by a Christian program for single mothers. During her pregnancy, she wrote poems and letters to her unborn son, promises of a better life than she had known. Years later, those writings would resurface in her autobiography, raw, tear-stained, and still full of hope. She later admitted that even though she was scared, she felt a strange sense of destiny. "I didn't know how," she recalled, "but I knew.
My son is going to do
do something big.
But what Pattie couldn't have known was the price of that greatness. The child inside her would one day change the world. But before he could rise, the world would try to break him. On March 1, 1994, in the quiet city of London, Ontario, Canada, finally, a miracle was born. Inside St. Joseph Hospital, a trembling teenage girl named Pattie Mallette held her newborn son for the very first time. She was just 18, her hands shook, her eyes welled with tears, not just from the pain of childbirth, but from something deeper, something sacred. She had nearly ended this pregnancy a year before, crushed under the weight of depression and isolation. But in that moment, cradling her baby, she whispered through sobs,
You're my miracle boy.
he had survived her darkness, and now she vowed to protect his light. She considered many names, Joshua maybe, but her heart kept coming back to one, Justin Bieber. Justin, meaning just or righteous, perfectly aligned with her devout Christian beliefs. And Drew, his father's middle name, was a quiet wish, a hope that even if his father wasn't there, the boy would carry a piece of him. His father was gone. Their relationship had fallen apart. Pattie was alone, completely alone. Well, not entirely. Her mother, Justin's grandmother, stepped in when she could, though she was battling her own demons. Most of the time, it still felt like Pattie and her little son against the world. But to Pattie, it wasn't just motherhood, it was stewardship. She wasn't just raising a son, she was raising a promise. She believed God Himself had placed in her arms. And so, after the hospital, reality set in. They returned to the same tiny apartment, 4 walls, barely enough for one person, now holding 2 fragile lives. It was a Christian program offering hope and shelter to young single mothers, girls like Pattie, who had nowhere else to turn. But it didn't feel like a home. Not really. The space was more than cramped. It felt like the walls themselves were closing in, dark, damp, heavy with the smell of molds that clung to their clothes. At night, cockroaches skitter across the counters, while mice scratched in the shadows, turning silence into a cruel reminder of where they were. It wasn't a home, it was a survival. Yet, through the filth and fear, Pattie forced a smile for her son. She refused to let him see defeat in her eyes. And somehow, in that broken place, they found warmth in the only thing they had left, each other. Years later, when young Justin said in an interview, the host asked him what he would do if he ever made $1 million. He didn't even pause. He didn't say cars, fame, or clothes. He said, I would buy my mom a house.
What would be the first thing you get?
When I get $1 million?
Yeah.
Probably a house for my mom.
Oh.
Pattie worked low-paying jobs to survive. Some days, even food on the table felt like a mountain. And yet, even in that broken place, something beautiful began to grow. While most toddlers took their first step and ran toward toy cars or stuffed animals, Justin didn't. From the moment he began to walk and talk, it was clear he wasn't like other kids. He didn't care for toys with wheels or stuffed animals with names. Instead, he was drawn to sound, rhythm, movement. He would wander into the kitchen, pull out wooden spoons and tap them against pots and pans. He'd tap them together, arrange them in patterns, like a homemade drum set. While other kids were playing pretend, Justin was playing real music. At first, Pattie thought it was just noise, just a toddler banging around. But one day, she stopped and listened. What she heard wasn't random. It had structure, soul. It was like something was speaking through him, like rhythm lived inside his tiny body and had found a way out through his hands. Then came the moment that changed everything. At just 2 years old, and yes, there is a real video of this, Justin stood in front of a chair, no spoons, no fancy setup, just his tiny hands. And what he played left Pattie speechless. With nothing but that chair and his bare palms, he created a rhythm so pure, so natural, so unbelievably precise. It didn't sound like something a toddler should even understand, let alone perform. Pattie stood frozen, unable to believe what she was witnessing. This wasn't just noise, it wasn't play. It was passion, it was purpose, and it was pouring out of her son long before the world ever knew his name. In that moment, she thought back to the night she almost lost her life and knew she had been spared for this. She believed God had given her a child, not just to save her, but to save him, and perhaps in some way to let his light save others. She knew then he wasn't just a little boy making sounds. He was the sound, he was rhythm. Pattie wanted to give him real instruments, but she simply couldn't afford them. So Justin improvised. He practiced with what he had: pots, plastic lids, stair railings, teaching himself rhythm and beat. Hours would pass, and he'd forget to eat. He didn't need lessons or sheet music. He had obsession. He had fire. When he was 4, a friend gave Pattie a battered second-hand drum kit, dented, rusted, but to Justin, it was treasure.
Now what do you do with it?
He never had.
He'd spend hours pounding the skins, his little hands blistered and raw. He practiced so relentlessly that Pattie sometimes had to beg him to stop. He would forget meals, ignore bedtime, and keep tapping rhythms on walls. It wasn't a hobby. It was an obsession. Meanwhile, Pattie, a devoted Catholic, volunteered at their local church. She brought Justin along, and there he watched the musician with wide, curious eyes, quietly studying their hands, their timing, their soul. Eventually, they let him try. "We thought he's just a kid," one of the church musicians later recalled. But when he played, he blew us away. From then on, Justin became a regular at the church. Not just listening, but learning. At age 5, Justin enrolled at Jean-Salvi Catholic School. He started attending music activities, and once again, he stood out. Not because he wanted fame, but because the music was part of him. At school, at church, on sidewalk, yes, even on the streets.
She screams.
Little Justin began busking outside in public spaces, not just for fun, but to support his mother. He knew they were struggling. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes when she came home, the way she tried to smile through it. Life was so hard that Justin later revealed in an interview. When he and his mom went to a restaurant, he'd ask for a soft drink, but she would gently tell him no. They couldn't afford it. He would sip water instead, not fully understanding, but feeling the quiet ache of their reality.
My mom would always make me order water at restaurants and stuff. I could never get a soft drink.
Some nights, dinner was whatever they could find, so he did what he could, standing out in the cold, guitar in hands, singing to strangers, praying. A few coins might fall into his case, and people did, because when he sang, the world paused. People would stop mid-step, turn around, and just listen. There was something about that voice, something that did not belong to a child. On an ordinary day, with his guitar case open for coins and his voice carrying through street, a stranger paused, leaned in, and whispered to someone nearby.
This boy's gonna be famous one day.
It wasn't compliment, it was prophecy. Most days, you could find Justin outside Stratford's Avon Theatre, his small guitar case open for coins. The cold air carried his voice across the square, bouncing off brick walls. Neighbors still recall walking by and hearing that little boy, head down, fingers on worn guitar strings, singing like he had an audience of thousands. One neighbor, so struck by the scene, pulled out a camera and filmed him. That simple clip passed around Stratford before the world ever knew his name. became one of the earliest sparks of the viral storm to come. Today, those very steps are treated like landmark, a sacred place for fans who travel to see where it all began. To Pattie, it felt like confirmation of what she had believed all along, that her son's gift wasn't random, that God had placed music inside him for a reason, and now even strangers could sense it. Justin kept growing and so did his talent. He continued learning from church musicians and started watching YouTube videos, studying the greats. His voice matured, his confidence blossomed, but still, he was unknown to the world. Until one event changed everything. Stratford Idol, a small town singing competition. Justin sang So Sick by Neo. He didn't win, he placed second. But the crowd didn't care. They rose to their feet. The judges sat stunned. The audience saw something rare. A 12-year-old boy with the voice of a star and the soul of an artist. And when Pattie looked at him under those lights, she didn't see second place. She saw prophecy unfolding, the promises she had written about years before in tear-stained letters to her unborn son. Pattie recorded the performance and uploaded to YouTube, just for friends and family. She thought it was nothing more than a way to share his talent with those who couldn't be there. But Justin gave the channel a name, a strange little word that carried more weight than anyone realized. Kid Roll. It wasn't random. Roll was a nickname his dad often used, a word only family knew. Justin added kid in front of it, so it became Kid Roll, a boy, stamping his identity on the digital world. But that single upload, it did not stay small. One video turned into 2, then 10. Justin's voice kept filling the screen, covering songs by Justin Timberlake, Usher, Chris Brown. And soon, it wasn't just family and friends clicking play. Strangers found him. First 100, then thousands. The numbers ticked upward like a clock he couldn't control. The views climbed, comments poured in. Each refresh was louder than the last. Something big was happening, and it was only just beginning. One day, Scooter Braun, a former marketing executive for So-So-Dip, trying to break into artist management and already seen as a rising force in the music industry, known for spotting raw talent. He was scrolling through YouTube, searching for something completely unrelated, when he accidentally clicked on a video titled So Sick. He thought it was Justin Timberlake cover, but what played instead was a 12-year-old boy with no mic, no studio, just raw, breathtaking talent. Scooter leaned in. Then he played another video, then another, and another. By the end of the hour, he wasn't just impressed, he was obsessed. He knew without a doubt that this boy was a star, and he had to reach him. But there was a problem. There was no contact information anywhere. No email, no number, just a boy and a voice. So Scooter started leaving comments, dozens of them. Please reach out. I want to talk. I believe in this kid. But you know what? No one ever replied. So he kept digging. He started messaging anyone he could find, sending his pictures, his videos. Hey, do you know who this boy is? Where is he from? How can I reach his family? Nothing. Most people would have stopped there, but Scooter didn't. He became a man on a mission, a detective chasing a dream. He rewatched every single video, this time not for the voice, but for the background, the walls, the lighting, the floor, the faces in the crowd, anything. And he spotted something. In one clip, Justin was performing on a small stage with a school banner behind him. Scooter paused the frame, zoomed in, and searched for the school on Google. He called, no answer. He called again, still nothing. Then he moved to the next clue, a local theater stage where Justin had once performed. Scooter tracked down the name, Avon Theatre in Stratford, Ontario. He called them too, asking, pleading, but still couldn't get a connection to Pattie. Still, he did not stop. In another video, Justin was playing at a church. Scooter studied the stained glass, the altar, the pews. He dug through local directories and matched it to a small church Pattie used to attend. He called. This time, someone answered. They knew Pattie and they agreed to pass along his number. Finally, a breakthrough. The phone rang, Pattie picked up. Scooter took a deep breath and started explaining who he was, what he saw in Justin, and what he wanted to offer. But before he could even finish, click, she hung up.
Sorry, we're not interested. Please don't call again.
To her, it sounded like another scam, another stranger circling, trying to package her little boy and sell him to the world. But Pattie wasn't just protective, she was scared. She knew the cruelty of this world because she had lived it. She had been broken by it. And the last thing she wanted was for her son to be crushed by the same darkness that once swallowed her whole. Deep inside, she also remembered the promises she had whispered over Justin before he was even born, that his life had a purpose. And now she wrestled with a terrifying question. Was this man on the phone the answer to that prayer, or the trap she had always feared? The boy she cradled in love would one day be branded, marketed, and consumed like a product. And deep down, Pattie always sensed that the world was waiting to take him away. But Scooter refused to give up. He kept calling, he sent emails, he forwarded articles, sent clips of his work, even videos of himself explaining his intentions, begging her to please just listen. Pattie Mallette was a woman of faith, so she prayed. She later admitted,
God, if this is from you, open the door. If not, close it.
and suddenly she felt something. A peace, a quiet stillness, a whisper in her heart. She didn't fully trust the industry. She didn't know Scooter. She opened up to her church community, and the response was full of faith. Maybe, just maybe, this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. So she said yes, not recklessly, but carefully. She agreed to fly to Atlanta with Justin, not as a starstruck parent chasing fame, but as a mother who had walked through pain and fire, now standing at the edge of something bigger than both of them. But what Pattie couldn't see yet was the shadow hiding behind the spotlight. The door she had prayed for God to open would indeed swing wide, but with it would come both miracles and monsters. Because destiny wasn't just circling around Stratford anymore. Far away in Atlanta, pieces were already moving into place. Scooter was not chasing this boy alone. He had someone waiting, someone who knew exactly what it meant to rise from nothing and who held the power to change everything. His name was Usher, and soon he would help change Justin's life in ways that would lift him to the stars and nearly break him. In 2008, Pattie packed their bags, hers heavy with worry, Justin's light with dreams. He was just 13 and this would be his first time on a plane. Justin was excited, wide-eyed, bouncing in his seat. But Pattie, she was anxious, terrified even, because they weren't flying to meet family. They were flying to meet someone they barely knew, someone from the internet. Scooter Braun. He had seen Justin YouTube videos. He said he believed in him. He told Pattie this could be something real. And to make it real, he didn't just talk, he acted. Scooter paid for their tickets from Canada to Atlanta, Georgia, setting the stage for everything that was about to come. For Pattie, that gesture was reassuring, but not enough to silence the voice in her head. She had lived through darkness. She had seen what people were capable of. Scooter might have been a rising name in the music industry, but he also knew if he wanted her trust, he'd have to earn it in person. That's why, when their plane touched down, so he did not send an assistant. He came himself. At the airport, he greeted them with warmth, no Hollywood flash, no red carpet, just a young boy, his anxious mother, and a man who looked them in the eye and made them believe. He did not drop them at a hotel. Instead, he brought them to his own home, offering not just a room, but a sense of safety. He and his girlfriend cooked for them, made sure they weren't overwhelmed, and treated them like family. He did not act like a manager, he acted like a big brother. Because he needed Pattie to trust him, and she needed to know her son wouldn't be chewed up by fame like so many others. And yet, as she lay awake that first night in Atlanta, Pattie prayed again. Was this God's open door or the start of a very nightmare she had always feared? She believed Justin was chosen, but chosen paths are often the heaviest to walk.
Justin is not just healthy like I prayed, but like I said, he's really tough.
For Justin, Atlanta was a culture shock. Stratford had been quiet, snowy streets and small-town life. Here, the air vibrated with bass. Gold records gleam on studio walls. Hip-hop culture pulsed through every corner. It was overwhelming, but to him it was also electrifying. Like stepping into a dream he didn't want to wake from. Within days, Scooter began introducing Justin to big names. Jermaine Dupri, and then Usher. At the time, Usher wasn't just an R&B star, he was an empire. Multi-Grammy, millions of albums sold, global tours, chart-topping hits like Yeah and You Got It Bad. He wasn't just famous, he was music royalty. But the first time Usher met Justin, he barely looked twice. He brushed him off. Too busy, too distracted. To him, Justin was just a small Canadian kid with no place in that world. That sting could have crushed a boy. Instead, Justin held onto it, quietly determined to prove him wrong. Days later, in a studio lobby, fate gave him another chance. Pattie nudged him forward, and Justin, without hesitation, began to sing right there in the hallway. No microphone, no stage, just raw, fearless voice. The room froze. Heads turned, even Usher stopped in his tracks. It was the kind of moment that couldn't be ignored. That same week, Justin found himself in a studio full of adults. And what happened next left the room stunned. He sang, not nervously, not timidly, he earned it. Producers, hardened professionals, grew emotional. Some wiped away tears. Because this wasn't just talent, this was rare. This was once in a generation. A few weeks later, Usher finally sat down to watch Justin's YouTube clips. And this time, he called Scooter back urgently. He wanted another meeting. When Justin stood in front of Usher and sang Usher's own song, You Got It Bad, live, without fear, without hesitation, Usher felt it. Goosebumps.
When you're on the phone, hang up and you call right back.
He turned to Scooter and whispered, "The kids got it." Suddenly, Justin wasn't just another hopeful. He was the most wanted kid in the music industry. A battle broke out. Usher's came against Justin Timberlake came. Timberlake team made serious offers, fighting hard to lock Justin in. Two giants of pop and R&B, both pulling at the same 13-year-old kid from Stratford. But in the end, Usher and Scooter barely edged out Timberlake, and together they created Raymond Brown Media Group, RBGM, a joint venture built to develop Justin's future. Still, vision alone wasn't enough. They needed a label, a stage big enough for the world to see him. Scooter took Justin straight to LA Reid at Island Def Jam. The office was tense. Pattie sat close, protective, watching every word, every glance, unwilling to let her son be swallowed by industry sharks. And Justin did what he always did best. He sang on the spot. No rehearsal, no polish, just raw soul. LA Reid leaned back, stunned. He signed Justin immediately.
You know, he walked in with Usher. Usher called and said, "I have something really special for you."
And Scooter, he believed so deeply, he mortgaged his own house before the ink had even dried. Pattie, hearing this, broke into tears. Someone else was finally willing to risk everything for her son. Proof she wasn't alone anymore in carrying his destiny. It wasn't just business anymore. It was a gamble that could make history or unleash forces that would test a boy far beyond his years. Every step toward the spotlight carried a shadow with it, a shadow neither Pattie nor Justin could yet see. From that moment on, they got to work. Justin wasn't just a kid with talent anymore. He was a project, a vision, a future in the making. Usher stepped in as his vocal coach, sharpening every note, every breath. He was also coach on the things no one ever teaches a teenager. How to handle a microphone, how to carry himself in interviews, how to smile through nerves, how to answer questions with confidence, and even how to control his body language on stage so the world would see not just a boy, but an artist. Scooter, now his manager, juggled meetings, calls, and deals, working day and night to build something legendary. But more than anything, Scooter knew the real key wasn't just music, it was connection. And that's where the social media became their secret weapon. Long before most artists even understood platforms like YouTube or Twitter, Scooter and Justin were already using them to build an army of believers, millions of fans before the first album even dropped. Scooter would message fans pretending to be Justin, responding personally, just to make people feel seen, heard, valued. And yeah, it worked. It created a bond, a moment. But connection didn't only live online. Scooter began sending Justin out in the world. School gyms, tiny radio station lobbies, shopping malls across America. No flashing lights, no grand stage, just a skinny Canadian kid, a microphone, and a dream. And yet, every time he sang, chaos erupted. Teenagers screamed, parents pulled out cameras, crowds pressed so tight that security guards had to step in. It was in those cramped malls and echoing gyms that something undeniable became clear. This wasn't just fan base forming, it was the birth of Bieber fever. To Pattie, it felt surreal. Just a year earlier, her son was busking on a cold Canadian sidewalk. Now, people across the world were calling him their idol. In her prayers at night, she often whispered,
God, if this is really your plan, give him strength.
because I see how heavy this is already. The dreams were turning into reality. Everyone around Justin could feel it. He was rising higher with each passing day. And now, even the world was beginning to notice. But behind the viral numbers and glowing fame was a kid. And that kid was exhausted. The work was non-stop. Voice lessons, dance rehearsals, studio sessions, media training, no breaks, no weekends, no real childhood. Now, that doesn't mean they were using Justin for their own gain. They were helping him, pushing him to uncover the diamond hidden inside. On the surface, it looked like a win-win for everyone. But still, for a kid only 13, that kind of intensity was unbearable. Imagine standing in the center of a storm, every voice around you demanding you more, every hand pulling you forward. Justin wasn't just chasing his own future, he was carrying the dreams of everyone around him. And that weight was far heavier than any 15-year-old should bear. Right before his first single, One Time, was about to release, it all became too much. One night, Justin broke down. Tears, doubt, homesickness. He missed his friends, his tiny hometown, the simplicity of a normal life. In the quiet of that moment, he looked at his mom and whispered, I don't know if I can do this. And Pattie, steady, unshaken, cupped his face in her hands and said softly,
You were born for this. But if you ever want to go home, I'll take you back. Anytime.
She meant every word, but deep inside she also knew there was no going back. Once the machine had started, it couldn't stop. But looking back, this was more than just nerves. It was the first crack in the armor, the first sign that behind the lights, the cameras, and the screaming fans, Justin was already fighting to breathe. He needed rest, he needed help, he needed space to be a kid. But instead, he was swept deeper into the current of fame, an ocean that had already drowned so many before him. And this was only the beginning. Time slipped by. First days, then weeks, months, and with each one, Justin's fame rose higher and higher. His fan base exploded beyond anyone's control. Millions of YouTube views, tweets going viral. The world wasn't just watching, it was demanding more. But behind the curtain, the pressure was quietly tightening. Scooter and Usher believed in him fiercely, but the workload was crushing, and Justin was still only a boy, 13 going on 14. Scooter couldn't be everywhere at once. He couldn't sit in every meeting, watch every interaction, or shield Justin 24/7. And that gnawed at him. Guilt, fear, responsibility. Yeah, he knew he had to protect the boy, but he also knew he couldn't do it alone. And so, Scooter and Usher made a surprising move. They reached out to Sean Diddy Combs. But why Diddy? Because Sean Combs was no ordinary figure. Born in Harlem, he lost his father to gun violence at just 2 years old. That pain didn't crush him, it turned him into a force of nature. He rose from the streets to build Bad Boy Records, launching icons like the notorious B.I.G., Mace, and Faith Evans. He was a multi-platinum rapper, a Grammy-winning producer, a kingmaker. But his empire went far beyond music. Sean John Clothing, Ciroc Vodka, hit TV shows like Making the Band and Revolt TV, a global music network. At his peak, Forbes named him the highest paid man in music. He even helped launch the career of a young Usher, teaching him how to survive in the brutal world of fame. The decision to involve him wasn't random, it was bold and it was strategic, because Diddy was power, a gatekeeper who could open doors in days that might take years. He was influence. One phone call could put Justin in front of the industry's biggest names. He was experience, a man who knew the studio, the spotlight, and the boardroom. For a 13-year-old with nothing but raw talent and a dream, Diddy wasn't just a mentor, he was a rocket ship. And everyone was hoping he'd help Justin take off. But rockets burn fast, and they burn hard, and sometimes they burn the ones riding them. When Scooter and Usher first handed Justin over to Diddy, it was surreal. Justin himself uploaded a video called 48 Hours with Diddy. On the surface, it looked like every boy's dream: shopping trips for sneakers, hanging out in luxury cars, meeting hip-hop celebrities. Diddy paraded him around like prize student, introducing him to a culture Justin had only ever seen on TV. For Justin, it was thrilling, overwhelming even. Just months before, he had been skating down quiet Stratford streets, playing guitar outside the Avon Theater. Now, he was riding through Atlanta and New York in tinted SUVs, surrounded by flashing cameras, booming bass, and rooms full of people twice his age. The culture shock was dizzying, from small-town sidewalks to Diddy's world of fast money, faster cars, and endless nights. It was like stepping into another planet. He smiled for the cameras, laughed in the videos, tried on the shoes. But deep inside, he was still just a 13-year-old kid, wide-eyed and wondering what exactly he had been dropped into. Their choice to place him under Diddy's wing, yes, it was bold, it was strategic, but it was also dangerously risky. Scooter and Usher knew the upside, the power, the mentorship, the industry access, but they also knew there was another side. The 1999 nightclub shooting in Manhattan. 3 people injured. Diddy arrested alongside then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez. He was acquitted, but the case sent shockwaves through the industry.
Been through since 1999, and then all the emotions that must be
to prison for the 1999 shooting.
His relationships just as volatile. Headlines followed his breakups with J.Lo and longtime partner Kim Porter, often loud, messy, and public.
At first, I didn't like him at all. You know, I didn't.
She says she decided to end what she calls her on-again, off-again relationship with Sean Diddy.
His reputation, flashy, controlling, dominant. A man who owned every room, every deal. Industry insider whispered what no one dared say aloud.
I heard about him more than he heard about me.
Right.
But when I met him, it was just like...
Diddy had a history of exploiting young, rising talent, broken promise, shelved careers, contracts signed in desperation. He was infamous for lavish, no-limits parties, where glamour often blurred into something darker.
It's a little kinky, but yeah, rock with me, but just right.
Diddy, Quincy.
Diddy party stories, man. That was like some weird memory lane.
Even back then, there were rumors of secrecy, manipulation, a private life surrounded by mystery, silence, and carefully guarded doors. His business tactics were ruthless. He would do whatever it took to stay on top, even if it meant stepping on the very people who helped him get there. And his name was forever linked to tragedy. The East Coast-West Coast rap feud that ended in the deaths of Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. Diddy was never charged, but many still question what he knew and what he didn't.
He managed to achieve so much in his short life.
Now I'm an actor, and I don't want anybody to take that from me.
Times the mind is just completely spinning. You know what I'm saying? You really.
Former bad boy artists like Mace and The Lock spoke out, claiming he took more than he gave, that behind the suits and champagne was a man who knew how to win, but didn't always care who got crushed along the way.
Big were like, yo, nah, Puff, they need to do this. Nah, Puff, they can't stay over there. I need them in this hotel over here.
Snoop, to this day, you know, I still love Snoop, you know.
And over time, the shadows caught up. November 2023, two women, including Joy Dickerson, came forward with harrowing accusations of abuse, drugging, sexual assault, and long-term suppression.
Take him seriously. I just thought he was a bizarre human.
May 2024, Hoodle security footage from 2016 leaked to the public. It showed Diddy assaulting singer Cassie Ventura in hallway, slapping, dragging, and throwing a vase. Reports revealed he had tried to pay $50,000 to have the footage destroyed. But once it surfaced, the world saw the truth.
To her before carrying out a violent assault.
Days later, Diddy released a shaky apology video calling his actions inexcusable. He said he had been in a dark place.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
But it was too late. The video became a turning point and a key piece of evidence in a federal sex trafficking and abuse case. March 25, 2024, federal agents raided his Miami and Los Angeles homes.
Investigation into sex trafficking. Officers searched properties.
What they found was shocking. Over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, allegedly linked to coercive violent sex parties, further cementing the disturbing claim.
Sex trafficking and racketeering case against Sean Diddy Combs.
September 2024, Sean Diddy Combs was arrested and placed in federal custody. He was later convicted on 2 federal counts of transporting individuals for prostitution under the Mann Act, while acquitted of the most severe charges like sex trafficking and racketeering. The court denied him bail, citing his violent history and risk of witness intimidation. His sentencing is set for October 3, 2025, where he faces 4 to 5 years in federal prison. From one of the most powerful men in music to a fallen empire. What you've just heard, it isn't everything. It's not even 5% of what happened or what is still hidden. We saw glimpses, caught in flashes, framed by the eye of camera. But there aren't cameras everywhere. And now years later, we are only beginning to uncover the truth. The people closest to him, the ones inside the circle, they knew. They knew the parties, they knew the pressure, they knew the darkness behind the gold chains and champagne. And still, in 2008, Justin suddenly found himself spending time with Diddy. Not just as a fan watching from afar, but as a kid inside his world.
So now you gotta,
I mean, I'm 15, you could ride in the passenger seat. I got
the shoes, the cars, the lifestyle. It all looked glamorous on camera, but away from the spotlight. No one was asking if a 13-year-old truly belonged there. The world thought it was the beginning of a dream. And in some ways, yes, it was. But what no one asked was, at what cost? Yes, Diddy would open doors, Yes, he would help Justin rise. But that rise would cost him something far greater than fame. It would cost him pieces of himself. Pieces he would never get back. Let me ask you something. If you knew a man wasn't just famous, but infamous, surrounded by whispers, shadows, stories too dark to speak out loud, would you hand him your child, a 13-year-old boy with the face of an angel, a boy who still missed home, who still believed the world was kind? Would you let him live with that man just to chase a dream? Would you call it opportunity, or would you call it something else? Because that's what happened. That boy was Justin Bieber. Even Usher, years later, admitted, "I would never let my own son go to one of Diddy's parties."
You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy camp?
Hell no.
Then why Justin? Because in that moment, the dream was louder than the danger. The allure of fame, the promise of fast success, blinded everyone. Scooter saw opportunity, Usher saw legacy, Pattie saw God's open door, and Justin, he was just a boy, wide-eyed, innocent. He didn't choose Diddy, the choice was made for him. And sometimes, the choices adults make in the name of success become the scars a child carries forever. If Diddy could do those things to women he loved, to artists he built, to friends who trusted him, then what chance did a 13-year-old boy from Stratford, Ontario really have?
Calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my,
This last time. He had the Lamborghini for a day or two, and he had access to the house, and he knows better than to be talking about the things that he does with Big Brother Puff on national television.
A question rises here. Where was his mother? Pattie wasn't always there. She had entrusted her son to Scooter and Usher because she believed in them, because she believed they would protect her boy, her angel. But as the industry wheels began to turn, she wasn't always asked, she wasn't always informed, and sometimes she wasn't even included.
When you're in this industry and you can't believe most of what you read.
Later, in interviews and in her autobiography, she would confess, "There were times I didn't know where I fit in. I had to trust Scooter and the team, but I also felt like I was losing control of what was happening around Justin."
Okay? If you win, you get a night out with Diddy Saturday night in New York, and I promise you, your ass will wake up Wednesday.
I feel crazy. The world is spinning around me.
Don't touch your stick.
Justin Bieber got by Diddy.
Usher didn't want to get by Diddy anymore.
P. Diddy party. This is what happens to the white man.
So unfortunate.
You gotta pull back though, so they can see.
Destroying evidence. However, he wasn't able to destroy everything.
And I'm bringing something special. Hey yo, Toronto Cash, what up?
Whatever the intent, Justin's times with Diddy left a mark. On camera, Diddy smirked and teased, "We're gonna be doing things we can't really disclose."
Where we hanging out and what we doing, we can't really disclose.
The world laughed it off as a joke, but looking back now, those words feel less like banter and more like a warning. Because it wasn't just sneakers, celebrity meetups, and city lights. It was the beginning of a bond with Diddy, one that would resurface, casting shadows later in Justin's journey.
Everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
But for now, the spotlight swung back to the music, and the world, it was about to hear a voice that would change pop forever. By late 2009, Justin's fame wasn't just growing, it was erupting. From the quiet streets of Stratford to the vast, unblinking eyes of the internet, he was becoming a global obsession. On November 17, 2009, he released his first debut EP, My World, featuring One Less Lonely Girl, My Favorite Girl, Love Me, and One Time. The impact was immediate, platinum in both the US and Canada, every single track charting on the Billboard Hot 100, making Justin the first artist in history to have 7 songs from a debut album appear there. One Time wasn't just a song, It was a passport to the world, topping charts in over 10 countries. Blaring from radios in languages Justin didn't even speak. His fanbase, especially teenage girls, multiplied by the millions. Small venues vanished from the schedule within months. He was headlining sold-out arenas. The media called it Bieber fever. By early 2010, he was everywhere. The Ellen Show, The Today Show, MTV. He even performed at the White House Christmas party for President Barack Obama, a surreal leap for a boy who'd been posting YouTube covers just 2 years earlier. But the brighter the spotlight grew, the more dangerous it became. The mall appearance that once felt magical turned into chaos. At Roosevelt Field Mall in New York, the screams were deafening, the pushing violent. One fan was hospitalized. Police shut it down before Justin even arrived, and in the aftermath, Scooter Braun was even arrested for reckless endangerment for not doing enough to control the crowd. The message was clear. This wasn't fandom anymore. This was hysteria online. His rise was unstoppable. Millions of Twitter followers seemed to appear overnight. He trended constantly. Every photo, every clip, every smile, saved, shared, replayed. By March 19, 2010, the storm had arrived. My World 2.0 launched with Baby featuring Ludacris, shooting straight to #1 on the Billboard 200. Its music video became the most watched and most hated clip on YouTube. A perfect reflection of how love and hate now chase Justin in equal measure. The invitations poured in, celebrity-only parties, backstage introductions to Beyonce and Rihanna. In one playful moment during an interview, Rihanna teased that she wouldn't date him, not because she didn't like him, but because of the obvious he was only 16. Wherever he went, hundreds, sometimes thousands of fans would follow him. To them, he wasn't just a pop star, he was untouchable, worshipped. But behind the flashbulbs, the truth was different. Security surrounded him so completely that he couldn't walk outside alone. To public, it looked like protection. To Justin, it looked like a cage.
7 minus 3 was 9.
He battled stage fright. There were nights he cried behind the curtain, summoning the strength to step into the light. After My World 2.0, he launched his first global tour, the My World Tour, from mid-2010 through 2011. Days blurred into flights, shows, interviews, and meet and greets. He was 16, and the weight of that life was crushing. In quiet moments, he admitted, "Sometimes I just want to go home, ride my bike, and be normal for a day." Scooter Braun later confirmed it. There were nights where Justin would break down and say, "I just want to go home."
I mean, I try to be as normal as I can with the abnormal life that I had.
He missed his mom, his friends, even the simple comfort of lying in his own bed and playing video games with his cousins felt like a distant dream. But around this time, another era began, the era of hating Justin Bieber.
But ow!
It started with Baby. As mentioned earlier, it became the most viewed and most disliked video on YouTube. The hate was relentless. Some mocked his voice, saying it sounded too much like a girl. Others refused to take him seriously, simply because he looked too young. And for many, the song had been overplayed to exhaustion, blasting on TV, radio, and YouTube until people grew tired of hearing his name. But there was also jealousy. He had become rich and famous at a speed most could only dream of. And for some, especially teenage boys, that success stirred insecurity and resentment.
I am absolutely sick of him.
Justin Bieber is not a boy. He's not even a man.
He is single-handedly, if I had a list of people I hate, he'd be up there at #1.
Soon, hating Justin Bieber wasn't just about disliking a song. It became an internet trend, a meme, a joke people repeated, even if they have never heard a single one of his songs. In 2011, one YouTube page claimed they would donate $1 to charity for every dislike on Baby. The result? A tidal wave of hate, as people rush to click the dislike button, not for charity, but for the punchline. And the hate wasn't just online. At concerts, some fans threw objects, even water bottle that once hit him on stage. At a California volleyball game, when he came to support Selena Gomez, the crowd turned cruel. The cheers weren't cheers at all. They were boos, loud, mocking, and painfully disrespectful.
There you see the coach say, "Why would you boo the kid?" The boos are from the guys.
But Justin didn't storm out. He didn't yell back. He simply stayed low-key in the stands, quietly supporting Selena, even as the noise tried to tear him down. It was one of the first public signs that behind the superstar image was a boy learning to survive both adoration and hate at the same time. And here's the hardest part. This kind of intense pressure, being alone, working endlessly like a money-making machine, cut off from the simple joys of childhood, and enduring waves of public hate for something you can't even fully understand is overwhelming for anyone. It's the kind of burden that can break even the strongest adult, let alone a 15-year-old boy. And these are only the incidents we know. Behind the cameras, behind the headlines, something else was happening. Justin wasn't just a singer anymore. He was becoming a brand, a rising empire in the making. And empires don't stay hidden for long. In 2010, Justin sold out Madison Square Garden in just 22 minutes, a feat reserved for legends. That concert became the centerpiece of his Never Say Never documentary in 2011, forever cementing his place as not just a teenage star, but a global phenomenon. It was history being written in real time. And Justin, he was still just a boy learning how to survive it. And on top of it all, people, whether in media, hosting interviews, or even among his own fans, began crossing Justin's personal boundaries. They spoke to him far from appropriate of his age. Sometimes they touched him like he was an object of curiosity and not a human being, like an exhibit on display, something everyone felt entitled to reach out and handle, forgetting that behind the fame was a real, fragile, deeply human soul. In the early days of 2009 and 2010, at fan meet and greets, the excitement was overwhelming. Some fans, sometimes much older than him, hugged him without warning, kissed him on the lips, or reached out to touch his hair. He smiled for the photos, because that's what was expected. But later, he admitted that for a teenager still adjusting to sudden fame, these moments could feel deeply uncomfortable, even invasive. And concerts weren't safer. At some shows, fans ripped his clothes as he tried to exit, grabbing at him until security pulled him away. In 2013, during a concert in Dubai, a fan even stormed the stage mid-performance, wrapping her arms around him from behind. The shock on his face said it all. Security teams were always on high alert, but the truth was they couldn't shield him from everything. To the outside world, it looked like a harmless fun, but to Justin, it was proof that even in public, he was never truly safe in his own skin. And it wasn't just concerts. In 2009, a mall singing in Long Island spiraled out of control. Thousands of fans crushed forward. One girl was hospitalized, and police had to shut the event down before Justin even arrived. For the world, it was proof of Bieber fever. For Justin, it was proof of how quickly adoration could turn dangerous. That same year, during a live radio interview, Justin was just 15 when the host asked him a question with an adult context. He didn't laugh it off. Instead, he pushed back, calmly saying, "Why would you ask a 15-year-old boy that?" It was a small but powerful reminder that he was still a kid and that certain boundaries should never have been crossed.
Really, I feel uncomfortable right now. How do you want to know the sex talk from a 15-year-old boy? That's pretty weird.
But it did not stop there. Between 2010 and 2015, Ellen DeGeneres repeatedly pressed him in interviews about his underwear, relationships, and even joked about sending him risque gifts. Questions that left Justin visibly uneasy.
You want to make sure that you have.
Fans later resurfaced these clips, questioning why a teenager was treated that way on national television. In the UK, television wasn't kinder. On multiple occasions, hosts made suggestive remarks. During one show, a presenter leaned too close and reached toward his face. Justin leaned back, clearly signaling his discomfort.
Hello there. Thank you so much. Look at him. Look at what a beautiful face. All right.
In 2011, comedian David Williams made flirtatious comments about Justin's look during a segment. There was no physical contact, but the tone made the 17-year-old visibly unsettled.
Naked on stage during one full song. Reach your face.
No, I was no.
What makes these moments haunting is how normalized they were at the time. The laughter, the applause, the jokes, all of it masked the fact that a teenager was being concerned in plain sight. By 2012, the boundary crossing was no longer subtle. At the American Music Awards, Jimmy McCarthy kissed him on the neck and held him tightly while presenting his award. On stage, Justin forced a smile, but muttered, "Wow, I feel violated right now."
Wow! I feel violated right now.
McCarthy later admitted she did grab him and called it kind of weird, but instead of apologizing, she joked about it. That same year, backstage at London's Capital Summertime Ball, Katy Perry playfully touched him without asking. Justin looked surprised, but stayed professional. Moments like these weren't framed as violations. They were played off as funny, cute, or flirtatious. But the truth was darker. The world had stopped recognizing his boundaries altogether. It didn't end with fans or TV personalities. By 2015, a Yahoo lifestyle writer openly confessed in an essay, "I started crushing on Justin Bieber hard." This wasn't written by a teen, but by a grown adult, romanticizing a young man who had grown up under constant public scrutiny. It showed how blurred the lines had become between admiration, obsession, and exploitation. The world consumed him as entertainment, rarely pausing to consider the human cost. But perhaps the most brutal boundary ever crossed came in 2011. At just 17 years old, Justin was dragged into a kind of scandal no teenager should ever face.
Google Trends this hour, pop star Justin Bieber is fighting to prove he is not a baby daddy.
Concerns, most definitely, yeah. Especially when he came onto me.
A woman named Maria Yeater filed a lawsuit claiming Justin had fathered her child. After a backstage encounter, the tabloids exploded. Headlines screamed. Every news outlet, from gossip blogs to primetime television, dissected the story.
Boy, and you know, it's been months since we've heard anything about that woman who made the claim. So one, he appears to have aimed at the woman who accused him of fathering her child.
For weeks, Justin's face wasn't framed as a rising star or teenager idol, but as a scandal. Reporters hounded him, cameras flashed endlessly, and interviewers demanded answers to questions no minor should ever be forced to answer. The claim was false. Yeah, DNA tests later proved it. Yeater finally dropped the case. But by then, the damage was already done. For a 17-year-old still trying to find his place in the world, it was public humiliation, a moment where innocence was stolen, not by action, but by accusation. To be forced to defend his morality, his identity, and even his youth was a violation on a scale far larger than any fan encounter or invasive interview. But even that wasn't the worst of it. Sometimes the danger wasn't just emotional, it was physical, deadly. In July 2012, Justin was behind the wheels of his Chrome Fisker Karma on Los Angeles freeway. Behind him, 5 cars. Not fans, not friends, but paparazzi. Engines roaring, chasing him like prey. The speed meter climbed past 100 mph. Every lane change was a risk. every second a chance for disaster. Inside the car, Justin, just 18, fumbled for his phone. He dialed 911, his voice shaking, begging for help.
Emergency, what are you reporting? Hello, I have like 5 cars following me.
Do you know the people that are following you?
No, I don't. They're driving really reckless. They just will not stop following.
Justin Bieber calling 911 Friday to report those paparazzi in hot pursuit.
To the world, he was untouchable, a superstar. But in that moment, he wasn't a brand. He wasn't a phenomenon. He was just a boy in a car, running for his life. The chase ended with police pulling him over and citing him for speeding. But the truth was impossible to miss. Fame wasn't just exhausting him, it was haunting him. For an adult, these moments might have been challenging. For a teenager, still forming his identity, still learning about the world, they were unbearable tests. This is the unspoken side of fame, the reality of being a young star in a world that often forget he was still just a boy. And these are only the incidents we know about. Countless others remain hidden, unspoken, or buried in whispers. Because while other 15-year-olds were worrying about school dances, sports, and homework, Justin was worrying about stalkers, lawsuits, and being raped in public. The truth is chilling. Justin was exposed far too early to things that would be toxic even for grown men. He was handed fame, money, and millions of eyes watching his every move. But what he wasn't given was space. Space to grow, to be safe, to be a child. Because by then, Justin wasn't just a boy anymore. He was a billion-dollar brand. And when a child becomes a brand, the world stops asking if he's okay. They only ask if he's available. And by the time the world realized the damage, it was already too late. But despite the exhaustion, despite the constant invasion of his personal space, despite the pressure of carrying the weight of millions of fans on his teenage shoulder, he did not stop. Yes, he was tired. Yes, he was overworked. Yes, he was wounded by how the world treated him. But Justin kept going. Even when the weight of fame felt unbearable. Even when the headlines mocked him. Even when pieces of himself seemed to vanish into the noise. He pushed forward. And in pushing forward, he began to build resilience. Not because he wanted to, but because survival left him no choice. Fame wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a battlefield.
It was like I didn't want anyone to believe it, but then I saw that no one was really believing it, and then I felt better.
Every storm eventually reaches a turning point. And for Justin, that moment came on June 15, 2012. He released Believe, not just an album, but a declaration, a deliberate step into manhood. Gone over the bubblegum, pop melodies of a boy with a bowl cut. This was more confident, grounded, and emotionally aware Justin Bieber, a young man reshaping his image with purpose. Infused with R&B, electronic, and dance pop elements, Believe wasn't chasing a trend, it was leading one. And Justin made his intentions crystal clear. This album is about growing up, changing, and showing people I'm more than a haircut and screaming girls. It was his plea, maybe even a cry, to be seen as an artist, not just a teenage phenomenon. And the world listened. The album debuted in the top 10 in over 30 countries. It went platinum in the US and Canada, and it delivered unforgettable hits. Boyfriend, a sultry swagger-filled evolution of his sound that stunned critics and fans alike. As Long As You Love Me, featuring Big Sean, a haunting blend of vulnerability and power. Beauty and a Beat, featuring Nicki Minaj, an adrenaline-pumping anthem that became a global sensation. All Around the World, featuring Ludacris, echoing his message loud and clear. He wasn't a kid anymore. This was more than music. It was a statement, a boy turning his pain into art, begging the world to see him as more than a product. For the first time, Justin wasn't chasing just spotlight. He was chasing respect. But just as he was beginning to feel truly respected, not just adored, the moment shattered. In 2014, a video film years earlier resurfaced, showing a 15-year-old Justin making a racist joke and using the N-word.
Why are black people afraid of chainsaws? Don't even say it. Don't say Run.
Days later, another clip followed, this time of him parodying Wellness Lonely Girl with a disturbing K reference.
If I kill you, I'll be part of the KKK.
The internet exploded. Some had already disliked him. Now, millions more turned away.
14-year-old Justin Bieber making racist remarks.
Her telling a joke. And the punchline is a racial insult.
But Justin did not hide. He did not issue a half-hearted statement. He apologized repeatedly and he took full responsibility. As a kid, I didn't understand the power of certain words and how they can hurt. I thought it was okay to repeat hurtful jokes, but didn't realize at the time that it wasn't funny. Thanks to friends and family, I learned from my mistakes and grew up and apologized for those wrongs. Now that these mistakes have become public, I need to apologize again. I'm very sorry. It was ugly, painful, and totally wrong. But it was also a reminder. He had just been a kid, a teenager, repeating words he didn't fully grasp. Now crucified by a world that didn't care how much he had grown since then. And years before, he had already predicted his own downfall. People are just waiting for me to personally mess up. But I'm just a regular person. I'm going to make mistakes. Everybody makes them. When that mistake finally surfaced, it didn't matter how young he had been when it happened. From the moment Justin stepped into the industry, he was carrying a weight most 50-year-old couldn't bear. And with every passing year, that weight only grew heavier. He was still just a teenager. Fame, pressure, constant cameras, public judgment, loneliness in room filled with people. Eventually, he found a way to cope. Not through friends, not through mentors, but through drugs. Heavy drugs. In later interviews, Justin confessed. He admitted to smoking weed daily by 13 or 14, drinking lean, codeine and soda, using Molly, MDMA, taking mushrooms, popping Xanax, drinking heavily. This wasn't partying, this was escape.
Sipping lean, I was popping pills, I was doing Molly, shrooms. It was just an escape for me. I was just young.
Each substance wasn't about thrill, it was about silence. Silence from the noise, silence from the cameras, silence from a world that demanded he perform, even when his soul was collapsing. Some laughed, some made memes, some made millions of his breakdown, but no one was there to guide him, to protect the boy behind the brand. He was abandoned by mentors, exposed to a world he wasn't ready for. Where were the adults, the so-called mentors, who had promised to protect him? Instead of guiding him, they used him as a brand, a machine, a paycheck. And the cruel irony, the same industry that built him stood back and watched him fall because a broken headline sold just as well as a hit record. Between 2012 and 2013, Justin Bieber was spotted multiple times in Diddy's high-profile parties. Photos resurfaced later, showing bottles of alcohol in the background. Justin only 18 or 19, looking lost. To the world, it looked like another celebrity party, but to those who knew his story, it was chilling. History was repeating itself. The boy once placed in Diddy's hands was drifting back into his orbit at his most vulnerable. A boy in a room full of grown men, playing a game he didn't yet understand. At this point, Justin began to change, not because he was born that way, but because he was pushed into it. It did not happen all at once. It happened piece by piece, scandal by scandal, until the boy the world once adored became the headline it loved to mock. The monkey scandal. March 2013, on tour in Germany, Justin brought along a Capuchin monkey named Mally. The problem? No permit. German customs seized the animal, but Justin never returned for him. Melly was placed in German zoo.
Justin famously abandoned his monkey after it was confiscated at customs in Germany.
Fans were heartbroken. Animals' rights activists were furious. To the public, it was another sign of careless privilege. In truth, it was a teenager with too much money and too little guidance. But the world didn't care about the context. They only cared about the spectacle, the London meltdown. Weeks later, London became the epicenter of chaos. Justin arrived hours late to concerts. Thousands of fans, some just children, were left waiting. At the O2 Arena, he collapsed backstage and was rushed to the hospital. Headlines didn't say overworked teenager, they said diva.
Tonight, Bieber was breathless on stage, later treated by EMTs behind the curtain.
Outside his hotel, he snapped when paparazzi hurled insult. He lunged toward them, shouting, "I'll beat the F out of you." The image was everywhere. Justin red-faced, held back by security. The press didn't see a boy under pressure. They saw arrogance. And behind it all, his relationship with Selena Gomez was crumbling. Their on and off romance, once a fairy tale, became another tabloid obsession.
Young love between Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez allegedly did.
To Justin, she had been an anchor. When she left, he drifted further into chaos. The Anne Frank house controversy. April 2013, Amsterdam. Justin visited the Anne Frank house, the historic site where a young girl hid from the Nazis before her tragic death. In the museum guest book, he wrote, "Truly inspiring to be able to come here. Anne was a great girl. Hopefully, she would have been a believer." The backlash was instant. A clumsy attempt at admiration became another weapon against him. Instead of his charity concerts or millions donated, this one sentence became the soundbite repeated across the globe.
Justin Bieber's caused outrage for writing a self-promoting message in the guest book of the Anne Frank house.
The spitting incident, July 2013. Fans gathered outside his Toronto hotel. Instead of greeting them, cameras captured him walking onto the balcony and spitting.
The spit and then launches the loogie below. Yes.
His team denied he spat on anyone, but the photos told another story. The golden boy was now painted as arrogant, entitled, cruel. The mob bucket incident. That same month, another video leaked. In a restaurant, Justin peed in a mob bucket.
We swagger, man, you know.
On his way out, he spread a photo of Bill Clinton with cleaning fluid and shouted, "F Bill Clinton." The backlash was immediate. He called Clinton personally to apologize, and Clinton graciously forgave him. But the damage was done. The Brazil brothel scandal. Later that year, Justin was photographed sneaking out of a brothel in Brazil, covered in a blanket, cameras flashing. The image spread like wildfire.
Justin Bieber caught on tape by a Brazilian lover. And
to the world, it was confirmation. The clean-cut boy was gone, replaced by a reckless young man spiraling out of control. The egging incident, January 2014. Justin threw eggs at a neighbor's house in Calabasas. Not a harmless prank. The damage cost $2,000.
A neighbor of Bieber's claims the star threw these eggs at his home. CNN couldn't verify.
But the egging incident wasn't the whole story. Neighbors had complained for months about loud parties, speeding cars, reckless behavior. The boy next door had become the nightmare next door. He was charged with vandalism, placed on probation, fined nearly $80,000 in order to perform community service. For the first time, the world saw a global superstar scrubbing walls as a punishment. A humiliation splashed across every news site. The arrest that shocked the world. January 23, 2014, Miami. Justin was pulled over in a yellow Lamborghini for drag racing.
You see Bieber's rented yellow Lamborghini and his friend's red Ferrari flash, then their entourage's SUVs.
Charges: DUI, resisting arrest, driving without a valid license. Police reports said he admitted to drinking alcohol, smoking weed, and taking prescription pills. For the first time, the world saw Justin Bieber in a mugshot smiling.
You are charged with the following: DUI, alcohol or drugs, resisting without violence, and driving with an expired driver's license.
The boy who once melted hearts with One Time, now immortalized as a fallen idol. The petition. Over 270,000 people signed a petition to the White House demanding his deportation for bad behavior.
72,000 people have signed a Deport Justin Bieber and Revoke His Green Card petition on the White House's official website.
The petition reached its goal of 100,000 signatures, which means the White House is required to respond.
It wasn't satire, it was real, big enough that White House had to respond. They declined, but the message was clear. The world wasn't just tired of his mistakes, they wanted him gone. By now, Justin wasn't known for his voice, not his journey, not his art. He was known for one thing only: his scandals. The same boy who once sang to his mom in a small town apartment was now painted as a reckless celebrity spiraling out of control. But here's the truth no one wanted to admit. Justin wasn't even 20 years old. Most kids make mistakes at that age. Dumb choices, reckless nights, stupid jokes. But most kids don't have TMZ outside their door. Most kids don't see their worst moments broadcast to hundreds of millions. His mother, Pattie Mallette, admitted in interviews she was terrified, praying for him every night, powerless to stop the train wreck. And yet, even during those chaos, Justin continued to grind, make a wish dreams and donate to charities.
I'm actually teaming up with Conagra Foods to fill up food banks in all of North America.
Sick children still saw him as a hero, even as the world painted him a villain. It was the duality of Justin Bieber, adored in private, crucified in public. He wasn't just falling, he was unraveling. And millions weren't watching to catch him. They were watching to see how loud he would crash. In late 2012, Dana Martin, a convicted felon serving life for rape and murder, began plotting something horrifying. His reason? Justin Bieber never wrote him back. From his prison cell, Martin orchestrated a plan to kidnap, mutilate, and kill Justin Bieber.
Kidnapped Justin Bieber and his bodyguard. They even were plotting to use a specific tie, a paisley tie.
He recruited two men, Mark Stack and Tanner Ron, to strike during Justin's Madison Square Garden concert. They studied his tour schedule, tracked his security routes, and even prepared a twisted calling card. The plan? Strangle Justin with a paisley tie, Martin's signature, then castrate him with gardening shears. But Martin wasn't just motivated by revenge. According to a correction officer who interviewed him, his true desire was chillingly simple. I want Justin Bieber to know who I am, a desperate need for recognition, even if it meant orchestrating murder. But before it could happen, Martin told prison guards. Police arrested Stack in Vermont, Ron in New York, carrying the very tools they intended to use. In court, Stack and Ron were convicted. Stack sentenced to 9 years in 2015. Ron found guilty the year before. Martin himself pleaded guilty in 2014 to 2 counts of soliciting murder, adding 9 years to his life sentence. This wasn't just a tabloid scandal. It was a real assassination attempt. Imagine being 18, surrounded by screaming fans, but never truly safe. Not from cameras, not from hate, not even from the people who once claimed to love you. The same fame that put him on the biggest stages in the world also painted a bullseye on his back. And years later, documentaries like Hollywood Demons would revisit this plot, proof that the world could never forget how close the danger came. Justin was more than a pop star now. He was a target for lawsuits, headlines, and even murder. Looking back, the arrests, the scandals, the assassination plot, people labeled him reckless, entitled, out of control. But the truth? He wasn't bad, he was broken. A kid thrown into a world that chews people up for profit, pushed by managers, cameras, expectations, and fake friends, taught how to perform, but never how to cope. Justin didn't lose his way. They took it from him. There is a kind of silence that only follows chaos, and in Justin Bieber's case, that silence came with a sound, not of screams or sirens, but of music. Quiet, personal, brutal, honest. In 2013, while the world was busy judging him for his mistakes, Justin was in the studio, bleeding out his heartbreak, pressure, and loneliness into an album called Journals. There was no big announcement, no glossy marketing, no CDs in stores. Instead, he launched something called Music Mondays, dropping one new track every Monday for 10 weeks straight. He was just 19. The headlines screamed about arrests and scandals, but the music whispered something else. Vulnerability, heartbreaker, all that matters, confident. Produced with close collaborators like Bear and featuring names like Diplo, Chance the Rapper, Future, Lil Wayne, and R. Kelly, the project was soaked in R&B influence. Fans didn't just hear beats, they heard blood. The boy who once filled arenas was now trying to survive his own darkness. Journals wasn't designed to break charts. It didn't even appear on Billboard 200. But years later, it went platinum, and to the fans who held onto it, it became a cult classic, a secret masterpiece that said what Justin himself couldn't yet say out loud. At last, the turning point came. In 2015, Justin released Purpose. He was 21, and this time he wasn't just singing, he was apologizing. After years of mistakes and headlines that painted him reckless, Justin wanted to take accountability. He wanted to heal, to say sorry, not just to his fans, but to everyone he had let down. What do you mean? Sorry, love yourself, where are you now? They weren't just hits, they were redemption anthems, pieces of a broken story being stitched back together. The numbers were staggering, 6 for 9,000 units in the first week. Grammy nominations for Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Love Yourself, and Best Pop Vocal Album, Guinness World Records, including most Spotify streams in a single week. For the first time in years, critics, who once dismissed him as a product, began calling him an artist. But behind the scenes, Justin wasn't just trying to find redemption in music, he was searching for it in faith. Around this time, he grew close to Pastor Carl Lentz of Hillsong Church, a figure who became both mentor and spiritual guide. Justin was baptized in an NBA player's bathtub, with Lentz at his side. For a while, the pastor gave him direction, stability, even a sense of family. But the relationship was complicated. Lentz later fell into scandal himself, leaving Justin to face another painful reminder. Even those he trusted could fail him.
The woman allegedly behind the affair that brought down Hillsong Church celebrity pastor Carl Lentz speaking out.
Still, in that turbulent chapter, Lentz gave him something he desperately needed, a reason to believe he wasn't beyond saving. And yet, redemption came at a cost. By mid-2017, the Purpose World Tour had raked in over $200 million. Every night was bigger than the last, but behind the curtain, Justin was falling apart again, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But the shock was yet to come. With just 14 shows left, Justin abruptly cancelled the tour. Fans were devastated. Critics mocked him, but his explanation was simple. He needed rest. He needed healing. He needed to step away before he broke completely. It was one of the first time Justin chose his well-being over the machine of fame, a decision that would echo years later. Still, behind the sold-out shows, his heart was healing slowly. From 2010 to 2018, his on-again, off-again love with Selena Gomez played out like a public tragedy. They loved, they hurt, they broke, and when it ended, they both turned to music to say what words couldn't. Justin's Sorry, Selena's Lose You to Love Me, 2 heartbreaks, 2 melodies, 1 tragic harmony. A reminder that behind the tabloid drama were 2 young souls growing up under the harshest spotlight imaginable. By 2018, Justin had everything: fame, fortune, fans. But inside, he was breaking. In candid interviews and Instagram posts, he admitted to struggling with depression, anxiety, even suicidal thoughts. He confessed to being addicted to drugs in his teens, saying there were times he couldn't sleep without popping pills or smoking weed. He wasn't proud of it, but he was honest. For millions of young fans, hearing their idol speak openly about mental health broke the stigma, ensured that even heroes bleed. That same year, a light re-entered his life. Her name was Hailey Baldwin. Within months, they were engaged. By September, quietly married in New York courthouse. A year later, they celebrated with a full wedding in South Carolina. For Justin, Hailey wasn't just a wife, she was a lifeline. She brought him back to faith, to peace, to himself. She didn't see the pop star, she saw the person. And in her, Justin finally found what he had been missing all along: stability, love, and acceptance. Where the world saw a product, she saw a broken boy who needed saving, and she stayed. In 2020, he gave the world changes. It wasn't about reinvention, it was about reflection, love, commitment, growth. Songs like Yummy, Intention, and Forever wasn't just about romance, they were about healing, about building something real after years of feeling broken. What the world didn't know then, Justin had just been diagnosed with Lyme disease, a chronic mono.
For quite some time now, and I just haven't known why. And it's just...
The exhaustion, the weakness, the fatigue, it wasn't arrogance, it was illness. But he kept creating anyway. Critics called changes repetitive, fans called it real. It still debuted at #1 and earned a Grammy nomination, proved that music could still save him. That same year, he released a YouTube docuseries, Seasons. For the first time, the world saw the raw, unfiltered Justin, breaking down in the studio, confessing his past drug use, opening up about panic attacks, Hailey by his side, reminding him he wasn't alone. It wasn't the glossy image of a superstar, it was the fragile truth of a human being. With over 32 million views in its first week, it became YouTube's biggest documentary premiere, proof that the world was hungry, not for spectacle, but for his honesty. In 2021 came Justice, a project born not just from personal healing, but from global pain. The world was divided, tired, broken, and Justin used his voice to offer hope. In a time when the world is broken, he said, we all need healing. With Peaches, Holly, Lonely, Anyone, and Hold On, he gave comfort, joy, connection. Justice debuted at #1, broke streaming records, and restored his place, not just as a pop star, but as a voice for unity. With the Justice World Tour kicked off, fans expected the old energy, fireworks, chaos, spectacle. What they got instead was something different, something more mature. Justin spoke between songs, not just about love or fame, but about faith, healing, and gratitude. He prayed with his audience. He reminded them they weren't alone in their struggles. For the first time, his concerts weren't just performances, they felt like sermons of survival. One broken soul reaching out to millions of others. But perhaps the most haunting track was Lonely, just a simple piano and lyrics that cut like glass. What if you had it all, but nobody to call? It was his story in one song, the sound of a boy who grew up in front of the world and paid the price. In 3 minutes, Justin captured what years of headlines never could. The cost of being seen by everyone, yet known by no one. But suddenly, the music stopped. In 2022, Justin revealed he had been diagnosed with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, a rare neurological condition that paralyzed part of his face.
Nerve in my ear and my facial nerves
to have paralysis.
The Justice World Tour was cancelled. This time, he did not fight through it. He did not force himself to perform. He stepped back, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. He told fans he needed to focus on his health, and for once, the world didn't mock him. They stood by him because they had grown with him. They understood, and for many, his illness sparked awareness. Doctors reported patients coming in saying, "I checked because of Justin Bieber." Even in sickness, he saved lives. After decades of noise, Justin finally found something louder than the chaos: silence, chosen on his own terms. Most of his fans were still waiting, still hoping he would rise again, the way he had first burst onto the scene. But in early 2023, Justin made a move no one saw coming, a decision that shocked the industry and left his fans in awe.
Justin Bieber just sold his music catalog for an estimated $200 million.
Justin Bieber is on the verge of selling music rights to a publicly traded UK investment company. $200 million transaction, according to the Wall Street Journal.
He sold the rights to his entire music catalog, every song he had created before 2022, for a staggering $200 million. At just 28, he became one of the youngest artists in history to make such deal. Some called it bold, others called it heartbreaking. But whispers in the industry suggested something darker, that he did not fully choose it, that he was guided into it. The woman who brokered the deal had worked on catalog sales for legends like Neil Young, Shakira, Justin Timberlake, and Fleetwood Mac's Lindsey Buckingham. But those were artists decades into their careers. Their legacies were sealed, their chapters nearly closed. Justin was still in his 20s, still fighting, still searching, still learning who he was outside the noise. Some say she took a 10% commission, $20 million personally. To the outside world, it looked like financial freedom. To his fans, it felt like a goodbye. Because these songs weren't just music, they were memories, they were moments, they were his life. In April 2025, while fans were still waiting and hoping for signs of his recovery, they witnessed a side of Justin Bieber they never expected. Outside a quiet cafe in Palm Springs, just days before Coachella, a camera captured him breaking. Justin snapped at the paparazzi, his frustration spilling into raw words. "Money, money, money. That's all you want. You don't care about human beings."
Money. Only money. No people. You don't care about human beings.
It wasn't the first encounter with the paparazzi. By then, they had become a constant problem, shadowing his every move, following him everywhere. Justin was sick of it.
That's loving, going into someone's window. No, you're not gonna do this today. No, you don't get to ask me questions.
To them, he wasn't a person. He was a prey, a rare bird to be chased and captured. They knew it hurt him. They saw how it broke him. But still, they did whatever it took. Because to them, Justin Bieber wasn't a human being. He was a paycheck, and the more he suffered, the more they earned. These moments, showing a completely different Justin Bieber, can break even the strongest into tears. They immediately remind us of the boy who once sang on chairs, on street corners, on worn-out couches. The boy who sang simply because he loved it. But once he entered the industry, it took only a few years to change him completely. Looking back closely, you see the truth. He was used. To managers, to mentors, to cameramen, the media, to almost everyone around him. Justin was less a person and more an endless source of income. If Pattie Mallette had known where fame would lead Justin, she wouldn't have uploaded that video that started it all. But it wasn't the first time, and it wasn't only Justin Bieber. The industry had done this before. Britney Spears, famous at 16, haunted by paparazzi. stripped of freedom. I was never protected, just used. Michael Jackson thrust into the spotlight at age 5. No childhood, no rest. Only rehearsals, only applause. And it haunted him forever. Miley Cyrus, the face of Hannah Montana at 13, expected to be perfect, marketable, profitable. No one told me I could say no. Macaulay Culkin, a millionaire, before he even understood money, control, pressured, broken, he disappeared just to survive. And now, Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber's voice was a gift, his soul fragile but unbreakable, and yet the same world that fell in love with him almost destroyed him. Writing Justin Bieber's story has been unlike any other. It was the only script that brought tears to my eyes. Not just once, many times, because from the beginning to the end, it is an extremely emotional journey. And while we have told the story, we also pray, and let's all pray that Justin finds full healing soon. If you want to experience a real Netflix-style documentary, stay tuned. And please support us by subscribing to this channel. Thank you.